All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I think it's Thursday. It kind of feels like I had all day yesterday, Mark, where I was struggling with, I'm like, is it Tuesday? Is it Thursday? Is it Friday? It feels like Friday should be coming up. It's been a weird week, but I'm so excited because my special guest is Mark Ostach. Mark, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well, and I can completely relate. Every day has been Tuesday for about 90 days.
Does
So
it feel like that?
it's
It's like,
still Tuesday today.
is it I call it like sometimes when the days blend, I'm like, today is Tuesday because then I
Right.
cover 3 days in one.
Wednesday.
What is it?
Wednesday. It's like,
Wednesday.
yeah.
I like that. I like that. That's a good one. Well, very excited joining today with Mark online here for another edition of LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and kind of my series. And I've been calling this Social Media Pie, and the Pie is an acronym. It stands for Inspiring People Who Inform and Educate You. And I asked Mark to come on a little while back, and I said, "Hey, Mark, what do we want to talk about?" And he said, "Let's have a conversation about creating authentic connections in your online and offline life." And Mark, you and I have known each other for several years. I first remember, and I'm trying to remember where it was. I know it was through Walsh, but I remember you were like working on, I think, a side business, and it was related to unplugging technology. It was a class project? Do you remember
It was
that?
crazy. It started as a class project. It was back in 2009, if you can
Yeah.
imagine that. So over 10 years ago. And I was taking, I went to LB and got a degree in psychology. Then I went to Walsh to get a degree in information systems. And kind of this intersection of the psychology of technology was something I began really becoming passionate about. So Walsh had like a kind of like a end of the program project, and I decided to bootstrap a company in the spirit of that class, and created a plugin for your browser that allowed you to self-manage your time online and indicate how certain websites made you feel.
Yeah.
So it's tying your emotions and your mood with what you're doing online. So it was a great experience, but I do remember seeing you kind of come walk the, I don't know if it was like the senior.
It was like the capstone.
The capstone,
Yes.
yes.
It was like, I mean, the best way I can describe it, Mark, for people who aren't familiar, it's kind of like a senior class project, if you will, but it's like a science fair, and people would set up literally like the trifold display background, and then they might have their computer set up. I think you might have had yours, and some were doing demonstrations or giving talks. Working in the marketing department, I would come out. It was always on a Saturday, and I would come out and take pictures and talk to people and get video clips and post them on social. And what was your project? What was it called? It
was called My Mental Space.
That's it. Yeah.
And and it's literally rooted in the idea that your mental space is the hard drive of your mind, and what you do online impacts your mind, body, and spirit. And here we are 11 years later. I still believe those things to be true.
Yeah.
I just am no longer spending time and money in my basement writing code and working with developers to do so. I've turned to just advocating and kind of creating conversation around the topic of digital wellness as my primary passion that still exists 11 years later. That's almost like, that's sad, and
it's
persistent points.
Yeah, it's great continuity in what you've done. So before we jump too far into this conversation, you guys may notice I have a little ticker kind of running below. Comment below, let us know where you're watching us from. And nowadays we're all kind of at home. I get that. So are you in your living room? Are you in your outside, patio area? Are you sitting at the couch? And what city are you in? I mean, I'm here in Fraser, Michigan in my home office. My husband's upstairs in the living room. The kids are, in different areas of their house. But where are you watching from? So I always love to, see who's watching us, and we can't see you until you comment below. And then a little later on, I'm going to have an opportunity where we'll give some shout outs. Like, for example, Nikki Little.
I was going to give a shout out to Nikki too. I love Nikki.
And Nikki was on a few weeks back with me, and we're having some conversation about communication strategy. And Nikki, you introduced me to the term, and I've been using it ever since, which is, people are saying like the normal times, and now we're going into the new normal. And she introduced the term, the new abnormal, which is totally spot on what the times that we're in right now. So when I thought to bring, Mark out, I said, well, let's have a conversation. And I said, what do you want to talk about? And he said, creating authentic connections. And Mark, you've been such an authentic person. I've always known you to be just so true to your values, your messaging. I mean, what you believe in, your work, your family, everything has been so consistent in the entire time that I've known you. And you've been such an excellent example of being an authentic human being. So before we get into this conversation, Mark, you started talking about it, but why don't you give a quick overview, for folks who don't know you. Who are you? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, thanks, Brenda. Appreciate you having me on. And just for the record, there's nothing more authentic than some of the goofy faces that you make on social media. So like I'm not that comfortable yet in my online presence where I can be making,
Right. I actually am more comfortable making goofy faces than I am trying to
honestly, it's like when I see that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the Brenda that her husband knows and her daughters know in the midst of, the abnormal. And she's choosing to share it to tens of thousands of people every day. So kudos to you. And I appreciate that part of you. So thanks for that. But yeah, no, like you mentioned, we met at Walsh. I started this work in and around digital wellness, which really is rooted in the idea of how is human connection maintained as we become more digital. And that line continues to get more and more blurred. I think the current season of being reliant on technology as our primary form of communication has just invited me to even shift my perspective. That's been kind of hard and fast in this. We need boundaries. We need better ways that we can distance ourselves to create space for our minds and our bodies to rest. So that way we can be, authentic when we're online, or that way we can be a little bit more connected to people. Just to kind of clarify, like the work that I'm doing now, I'm excited to share. I have my first book coming out next month. It's called Courage to Connect. And the idea is that we need courage to connect in life right now. And it's so funny. My Mac got fixed yesterday. So now I'm getting all my wife's notifications when she gets text messages because I'm logged into her iCloud account. So I don't know how to shut that off. But my mom was just thanking her for birthday wishes yesterday. So there you go. That's a peek into my yesterday. Let me see if I can.
I think I've got the book too. Can I try to share the book?
Yeah. Try to share it.
Let me see if I can grab it. I'm kind of toggling back and forth. You guys trying to figure out how to do this. So there's not a way in StreamYard. Okay, is it up on screen right now? Are you seeing it? Okay, so there's not a way in StreamYard that I can share a file, but if I pull the file up, and this is just like I think this is a JPEG or a PNG file, I can share this. So if you guys watch me online on live, you know that I never make mistakes. I have learning experiences, and I just had a great learning experience, which is how do I share an image? And Mark, I am like loving this book cover, the clarity, the consistency with your brand. How long did this take you to do? And when can we buy it?
Yeah, so next month it's going to be out for both physical and ebook. But it's really been a kind of a summation of the last few years of writing that I've done. I've done a lot of storytelling, and I've just had the experience to experience some pretty interesting things. So I decided to kind of compile the best of and create a call to action at the end of each story to have you connect with courage either online or offline. So just kind of a few clarity, and I think this will help kind of root us in the conversation today. I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown's work. She does just so much work on courage, empathy, and vulnerability at home and in the workplace. And I was reading some of her work about the word courage. And the original word courage was rooted in the Latin word cor, which means heart.
Okay.
So, and then the original definition of courage, before we've kind of taken on this heroic meaning of it, was intended to share your story with your whole heart. So courage to connect is literally using that old definition on sharing your story with your whole heart and doing so online and offline. And Brenda, I think you've done an amazing job. Like, you are the same person online that you are offline. And I think that that's why you've had so much traction and growth, because it's been authentic and organic. I think oftentimes we find ourselves editing our online life so much so to create a brand or a following, when really people just want to connect with the real you, right? Your offline life, even if that means you're screaming at your kids or you're kicking your dog in the midst of this new abnormal. So
don't kick your dog, please.
Don't kick your dog. No,
but I have to say,
pet your dog and yell
I have to say about you, Mark. I mean, one thing I've admired from you, you're very genuine, but you're also very confident. And one thing I struggle with throughout my whole life is confidence. And I've always been an introvert, and I was always like the kid who hated raising their hand in school, even though I was doing well, even though I knew the answer, because I didn't want the teacher to call on me. And I always was thinking through high school and college, if only I was more confident, And for me, it's like kind of gradually gaining that. But I think also telling people I struggle with that.
Yes.
Whether it's the imposter syndrome or, the whole lean in thing or whatever, I just feel like it's something I've always struggled with. And I even like sometimes when I feel like I'm being confident, I'm like, ooh, was that too much? Do I need to pull back? Like, I don't want people to think I'm cocky or I'm full of myself or, but you have always been, I think it's always felt very appropriate, that level. And I've admired and watched you. And sometimes you're like one of those people I channel like, well, how would Mark address this situation? What would he, like you've got a great approach to things. So thank you for being an inspiration to me and to so many.
Oh, thanks for saying that. It's funny how that is a perception, right? Perception creates reality. And for the most part, that confidence has been something that God has given me, and I've leaned into, and I've made that just who I am, and I felt comfortable doing that. It's interesting. About 6 months ago now, I went off on my own full steam ahead into what I'm doing now, which is speaking, writing, and team building in and around mental and emotional health in the workplace and in our community. So it's been great. But my imposter syndrome and my even kind of like what I call environmental depression, which is something I've struggled with since I've been 18, which is not necessarily to say that I'm like clinically bipolar or depressed, but that my environment oftentimes creates depression in and around me. So I'm in my basement where I've been for like 3 months. If I move the screen behind me, you guys would be like, how many plastic toys do you
I kind of want him to move the camera, don't you guys, right now? I'm like kind of curious because
you guys are going to see.
Like you're in a studio. I'll move my
all right. I'm going to move. All right, here we go. I'm moving it back though.
I'm gonna go wide views too, so we can see this. Oh, look at this! Is great. Isn't this great, you guys? Don't you love seeing the realness of people? Is that a princess castle?
It's a princess castle.
Oh, I love it. So what is that? Is that just like a pop-up background?
Yeah, a pop-up light backdrop. My wife is is that good there, Brenda?
Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna put us back into a framed view so we won't see most of it. That's the wide view.
Okay, my wife is a professional photographer, and she's got all this great camera lighting and other equipment. So,
so you'd never suspect it, you guys. I mean, this is it's smoke and mirrors and
smoke and mirrors. Look at me. Yeah. But it goes back to like confidence, because it's interesting. Like with this new abnormal, like my confidence, like I went from speaking on stage and getting body language from people in the room and like feeling, I get energy from being connected to others.
Yeah.
I like to, we defined courage a minute ago, which is really to share the story of your heart authentically. And connection, I think connection is being redefined right now through COVID and everything that's going on. But I think even at its base, like a connection, if you think about electricity plugging in from a receptacle into the wall, it's a two-way, you're giving and receiving.
Yeah.
So for me, like it's taken a while to relearn how to connect with people. I'm just looking dead nuts in this green little light in this camera.
Yeah.
And I'm praying that not only are you seeing me.
Yeah. And it's hard doing these interviews.
It's hard.
I struggle with, I want to look at Mark and I want to see, and I'm looking at Mark right now and I want to see his facial reactions. And this is what you guys are saying when I'm looking down. But when I look at the camera, it's like, that's when we're making the human connection, which is like, it's like jumbo shrimp that I don't know what that terminology is. It's like I'm making a human connection by looking at a camera.
Right.
And as speakers, it's like, you get your energy from your audience. You see their reactions. And even things like in this live interview, you and I will get more once we start going into the comments and we start reading. Oh, people are commenting where they're watching from. Oh, they liked it when we moved the background screen. We can't see your humor. We can't see your, and it's hard, but you adapt, right?
Exactly. So going back to this, like confidence and imposter syndrome, like the second paragraph of the introduction of the book talks about my struggle with depression and imposter syndrome. And it's so funny because I feel like faith is really important to me. So I kind of view things from either the father of lies or the father of love. So anything can be, you can call it fear or love, whatever context works for you is great. But when change is happening, when this new abnormal is kind of happening right in front of you, I had to order 2 space heaters from my basement and figure out a way to block my kids' toys and sustain our family through virtual events. Like, what? That's not what I signed up for when I left. So that environmental depression has really been a huge part of the last 90 days for me. And it's like a manic in and out, right?
Yeah.
And you feel better when you're talking to people on the phone. Like the Zoom fatigue is a real thing, or StreamYard fatigue, whatever you want to call it. So
Yeah.
it's like having 2 or 3 of these in a day are great, but that third one, I'm struggling. So how am I creating connection? Am I going on a walk? Am I calling a friend? Brenda, are you and I doing a walk and talk with our earbuds in?
Right.
Like, it's just an interesting balance on how we're connecting. And that's why authentically is a little bit of a misleading word. And for today's kind of traditional means of like what it means to connect authentically, I think it's more about like connecting as your whole self. And right now it's hard to bring your whole self when you're in a basement that's cold with plastic toys and a really bright light that can
And are you also in your peripheral, like thinking, are the kids going to come down? Is my wife going to yell?
Right.
Is there going to be a door that slams? Do they just hear that? I'm not hearing anything.
Exactly. And I think that, Ollie, come here. I think I've got even.
Mark, I encourage guest appearances by coworkers, furry or otherwise. So please, don't you guys love guest appearances?
Here is Mr. Oliver Ostach. He is.
Aww. Hi, Ollie.
Quite a little handsome pants.
I'll try to pet
He's
him.
Can you say hi, Ollie? Yeah.
I can't get my hand over there.
When Ollie takes a bath, he like shrinks down to like the little Chihuahua dog from like Taco Bell. But yeah, this is Ollie. He's a good boy, and he helps keep me warm in the basement.
Is he a lap dog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's about 15 pounds. And we got another 50-pound dog named Jones.
Okay.
So, but back to like keeping it real. Like the kids are upstairs pounding, the dogs are barking, and you're wondering like, are people hearing that, right? And it's like, how do I leave, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, and I think, as a speaker and as a leader, you learn to tune things out that aren't relevant, and and also incorporate things that are real and that you're experiencing, and even like saying things like, gosh, I'm kind of tired this time of day, but I'm going to bring my energy level up. I mean, people can kind of feel that and they sense that with you. But it does, I think, going back to that point of making an audience connection, we're not, as speakers and presenters, we're not always on our A game at the top of our level. We struggle too. And I think that helps to show, the realness, whether you're pulling back the screen or even when things happen, in an event, Mark, the microphone doesn't work or there's an audience heckler, you got to like address it, right? And you got to say, hey, this happened, but the audience ultimately wants to see you succeed, and they want to be made part of that journey, if you will, too, like going from the awkward, whatever that thing was, happened to back to where we want, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's why I love the chat box. So everyone that's been submitting comments or sharing kind of where they're at, or just, it makes you as like a host or a co-host, it makes you feel like, okay, people are feeling it. Like they're alive, we're alive. All right. These cold-blooded devices are creating warm-blooded connections.
They truly are. And are you able to see, this is newer for StreamYard to show LinkedIn comments. Can you see the LinkedIn comments that are coming in right now?
Yeah, okay. I can see it. It's great. I really like everyone kind of sharing. I see that there's a few other folks with princess tents and dogs at work, and
so I'm going to start, since we're here, we're just going to keep going with these. I'm going to start pulling a couple of your comments up on screen, and then we'll open this up to some Q&A too. Let me see if I can put my little reminder underneath here, for submitting questions. Takes me a second here, guys. Hold on just a second.
As Brenda does that, I think just kind of to the audience that's listening, like, how are you finding yourself kind of based on the word courage, meaning like to share your story with your whole heart or to lean into vulnerability? Like, what is that looking like for you in your kind of day-to-day work setting? So that would be one question that I'd be curious on people.
All right, dropping that in. How's that? I kind of modified what I had.
Okay, yeah. If you already have the questions loaded.
Yeah, I had a few, but it's some of these I had to like reword them a little bit, and I didn't see my comment below with the question, but here it is. I just found it. Anyways, okay, so let's see who's online. We have Mary joining us, and let us know, guys, too, where you're coming from in the world. Ganesh says hello. Michael says great discussion.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Great to see that you guys are enjoying this. Althea says hello. James says good morning. Good morning to you, James. I've got my coffee. It looks like Mark had his mug as well.
Yeah.
We're drinking the coffee here today. And this is something I figured out too, Mark. My energy is better in LinkedIn Lives if I do these like earlier in the day. So I've now started cutting off my interviews. They're all going to be before 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Once I get to the 3 or 4 o'clock, I'll still pull it out of thin air whenever I need to. but you need to like think about when are the times that you're best, and kind of prepare for that. We have Michael joining us from Little Rock. I don't know who this is. This is a limitation. So if you have your privacy settings on LinkedIn where you're either semi-private or private, we can't see you. It'll say LinkedIn user. And then, so whoever this is, if you need some help with your settings, message me. But Michigan sofa kids everywhere totally can relate. A little jealous too. I want to go sit on my sofa right now.
Right. Hey, Brenda, let me share something as comments continue to come in. You mentioned like by 1 o'clock, like you're spent on LinkedIn Live. So you're starting to kind of like restructure your day.
Yeah.
Your connection level and the way you're interacting is just different. One thing that I've always found a lot of wisdom in is I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I think, if we go to the dentist to get our teeth cleaned twice a year, at the very least, we should go get our minds cleaned twice a year. But I like to see a therapist. And my original therapist talked to me about having 100 energy units to spend each day. And when you find yourself at 11 a.m., having spent 80 of those energy units because you've woke up, you've missed the alarm clock, you got a bad email about a client that left, your kids are sick, you didn't expect to have to juggle your schedule based around that, whatever the case is, when you find yourself starting to kind of get close to that zero of your energy units, if you're not mindful of how you restructure the rest of your day, you'll start to overdraft in your emotional and physical bank account.
And
when you overdraft, then you get stressed and anxious and sick and fatigued. So it's like I've always like my wife and I will talk to each other like, where are your energy units at today or in this moment? And that's a great way to kind of start to gauge like, okay, she's at 60 energy units and I'm at 90. How are we dividing and conquering for the rest of the day? But I think that has taken on a whole new meaning in where
we're at, right?
Living in a van down by the river in my basement.
It's funny too, because I think about, there's so many like crazy things coming out of this, but I think about, in the beginning when they first, and I remember it was like March 12th was the last day I was like out in public at a networking event. And I came home that day, and then that night was the governor's announcement in Michigan that the schools were going to be closed. And I heard right away, and she meant Monday, but in my mind, Thursday night, I was like, good, I'm not sending my kids to school tomorrow. So my kids' last day of school was that Thursday. And we've all been in the home since then. And I think about when I was growing up, our family has family in Pennsylvania, which is a 6 to 8 hour drive from Michigan. And a little kid getting in the car, you ask your dad, when are we going to be there? And my dad would say, it's just a little bit longer or something, it's just a little bit longer. And okay, that would buy me another half hour in a car. I'd play activities, eat my combos, whatever. And Dad, are we there yet? You start with that. He would say, it's just a little bit longer. We're getting closer. And I think like that's kind of what's happening. Like if the governor or anybody had said on March 12th, you're still going to be in your house as of May 28th, I think we would have went crazy knowing that time frame. But the 2 weeks at a time, we're extending the stay order, we're extending the stay. I mean, Mark, could you have imagined back in March that you'd be here and did you go through a period of time too where you're like, how are we going to do this? I love my wife. I love my kids, but how are we going to do this? Oh my gosh. It was like, whoa, thinking about that adjustment, right?
Yeah. We, my wife and I, we happen to both be similar in the sense where every day we have a life-size conversation for better or worse. And it's kept us like in closeness and in conflict daily, which good, bad, or indifferent, I'm not sure, but it's heightened even more. Like right now, it's like, okay, the kids were both in preschool. My son graduated on a Zoom graduation. Like as soon as the commencement music started, we're both crying like little kids. But it's been hard to reconcile like the expectations in your mind and when something's going to be done, right, or over. It reminds me of a story that I once read about a woman who was in a small boat, and the boat had issues and it sunk, and there were 2 other people on the boat, including her. They passed. She survived. And the way that she survived is because she was a really good swimmer, and she swam all the way to shore. It was like a ridiculous amount of mileage. But the way that she got there was that she identified a marker just in front of her, and she swam to it. And then as soon as she identified that little floating wave that she could see 50 yards in the distance, she would do it again and again and again. And it's kind of like that, that one step at a time mantra. But it was interesting to see her apply that swimming in the middle of an ocean and eventually getting to shore to survive.
Yeah. So it's small. We're almost there, kids.
It's
one wave at a time, or
exactly.
How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? I mean,
right.
It's breaking it up into smaller parts. But I mean, it's good to hear you're struggling, because I feel like am I the only one? I mean, I'm like, I love my husband. I love my family. I'm so glad we're healthy. I'm so glad that we're safe. And I do feel better having them inside the house. I get severe anxiety when my son goes for a bike ride, or my husband goes to pick up the groceries at the grocery store. And I'm like, oh, I just don't want you to be around people. But also it's kind of like, oh, good, they're out of the house.
Right.
It just reminds. So we started to go through comments. So let's go back and pick a couple more of those up here. So we've got Mary joining us from Chicago. Nice to see you online with us, Mary. Ganesh from Atlanta, Georgia. Kim Boudreaux Smith. I always say her full name. She's one of those names. She's like a celebrity.
I never name, yeah.
Terry Bean's another one. I never just say Terry. You know Terry, don't you?
Oh yeah.
I never say just Terry. I always say Terry Bean. And Kim Boudreaux Smith. You're the same. You're a celebrity for me, Kim. I always say your full name. We have James joining us from Ortonville, Althea's Buffalo, New York, in her home.
Awesome.
Don Habrick from his world headquarters.
The global headquarters of Don.
Global headquarters. I used to work with Don years ago, and I remember when we first started working together, he was doing some consulting freelance work, and he would describe his home office as his world headquarters. And I've adapted that to my Meller marketing. This is my world headquarters, Don. So thank you for inspiring me.
I love it. Hey, Brenda. Oh, sorry. As you're doing that, I'm thinking about what you just referenced about, like, feeling anxious, or like you love your family. I mean, I've seen some pictures of you and your husband lately where I'm like, gosh, I wish I was like on my porch sharing a drink with my wife.
Yeah,
they just look so happy.
We don't share the pictures where we're making snide comments to each other,
right.
Or when I'm rolling my eyes because of something he said, or he's stomping out of the room because he's not happy that I'm doing whatever I'm doing. I mean, we don't share that stuff on social media, right, Mark? We share, we celebrate, we show like the shining the spotlight, stuff, but because who wants to see that? And nor do you want to, like, in the middle of a fight, I'm like, hold on, sweetie.
Right. Well, it's funny because, and that's where, going back to this idea of courage to connect, like, one of the stories that I shared, and I think you might have read it, Brenda, but just about a month ago. So I have a 3-year-old daughter. Well, I have a 3-year-old daughter named Mia.
You got pictures. If you want to bring them in, if they're around, feel free.
I'm not bringing them in. They're upstairs. And then I've got Joby, who again, these are like their Instagram photos.
Yes.
But they're like, they're going crazy upstairs.
You have like the normal photos of them too, because that'd be precious.
I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. Those are their school shots. But so the other day we're at dinner. It's like midway through the quarantine, and we're sitting down. We try to eat a family dinner every day. That's just been a routine we've gotten into. And again, a lot of mania in our household with just not being the best versions of ourselves. So my daughter's 3. We're dishing up. We're halfway through dinner. We play a game called Rosebud Thorn at dinner, which is a way to engage everybody. You share your rose, what you're grateful for, your bud, what's on the horizon, what's blooming, and your thorn, what's that thorn in your side. My 3-year-old daughter is always like, my birthday is my rose, my birthday is my bloom, and I don't have a thorn. And I'm like, well, you're 3. You shouldn't have a thorn, right?
Right.
But anyway, so we're in the middle of dinner, and all of a sudden she said, Dad, hand me the effing orange. And I'm like, what?
I remember reading that.
Yes. She's like, hand me the effing orange. She said
effing, or did she say the word?
Oh, she said the word.
Really?
I'm keeping this
PG. I can't imagine that you or your wife are using that word, Mark.
Exactly. The quarantine does crazy things to the household. So
did she knew what it meant, or was she just like
she not really, because obviously like there wasn't any like tension in the dinner.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, she chose to use that word while in the middle of dinner. So I looked at my wife. We were like, okay, we're going to kind of ignore this moment.
Yeah.
And then we said, all right, how do we just kind of like let it pass? She said it again. Yeah. So then we said, Mila,
did you say you don't say that word? Because you don't want to acknowledge it in the beginning, because then you make it a bigger deal, and then she thinks it's funny.
Exactly. Right? So then I'm doing the dishes later, and we're talking to my wife, and we're reflecting. And I'm like, I know where she heard that word. And it's like, she heard that word from me yesterday. Like I don't remember the context.
You get to describe the orange. Does she think like that's how we describe oranges now?
I used it out of like a moment of anger. And as I share, like in this particular story, is like there's this idea that when we're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, we are more susceptible to dropping F-bombs, right? Or to not leaning in when we should lean in closer. We go further away.
Yeah.
So HALT is what it's called. Hurt, angry, lonely, tired. HALT is a great kind of internal dialogue you can ask yourself before you're stepping into a conversation where you're going to be in conflict. You say, is that person hurt, angry, lonely, or tired? Or am I hurt, angry, lonely, or tired? And you literally halt yourself from kind of biting your tongue or calming down. So that's been like a technique that I've had like a 10% success rate at.
Yeah.
And the other 90%, I'm not saying I'm dropping F-bombs, but I am saying that like it's hard. Like we weren't designed to be in the home all day long like this.
No.
Again, speaking to this idea of like, what does connection mean now? And how are we getting creative with how we connect?
Yeah, no, I love it. And I put the acronym up on screen to help me remember, because I'm going to watch this in a playback and I'll remember that again. I've heard as parents too, like, and I can't remember the story and what the person's exact formula was, but when your kids are in a situation where there's a meltdown or something occurring, they need a couple things. They either need food. It's like either add food, add water, or change the situation that they are in, like move them out of the room. So add food, they might be hungry or hangry, they gotten to that point. Add water, like literally, I mean, now we're moving into the summer. So go outside and put them in a pool of water, or give them water balloons to play with, or put them in the bath. I mean, I don't know about you, but my child always, my daughter, she always hates going into the bath. As soon as she gets in there, she loves it. She's happy. Yes. But it's like just adding water to the situation sometimes resolves it, or changing the environment. So if she's in a funk inside, I'm like, let's go outside for a bike ride. No, I don't want to go. You're coming with me. You don't have a choice. And we get outside, and then it changes her mood, and it's helping. If I can remember where I read that, I would give the person credit. But I think it can help. And related to that, so I just texted my daughter and I had her bring this book. I got to show you this book. So when my daughter was first born, she's a very, I love her energy, but she would, have these meltdowns about everything. And there was a guy who created a book, Reasons My Toddler is Crying. Have you heard of it, Mark?
No.
Okay. I'll need to get your address. I'm going to send it to you because I've got a copy of the book. And I was inspired to create my own book because my daughter, or I started by posting pictures on social media of reasons Charlotte is.
Oh my God.
So I created this book for her, and I'm just going to show you the back cover just to show you one.
Gosh.
And these were the captions I would post. And this was when she was like newborn. And she was just crying about everything. And every page of this book, I've got like different scenarios why she was crying. Because I hurt my finger. Because it's something to do with the juice box. I mean, it's like silly situations. Because I'm tired and I don't need. I mean, she was fighting me on a nap that day. Because I'm a hot mess. I have a cracked tooth because I fell. I was in a bar fight. And I remember when I was putting this together, and I gave it to her for Christmas one year. And she was, I think, maybe 4 or 5 when I gave it to her. And we looked through, and she loved it because she remembers me taking the pictures, and she didn't mind. And I had people at the time saying, well, don't you think she's going to get mad at you when she gets older? And my son's 6 years older. So I said, Joshua, would you have minded if I would have created a book for you like this? And he's like, no. He's like, why did you? Like, can I see it? And I was like, man, I didn't do it for him.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's really cool. And it also goes to show how authentic you've been in your photo capturing from an early age, almost like pre-smartphones. You probably had your like little snap camera.
No, it was social media.
It's funny.
All of it.
And I wonder, will your daughter, like when she's a grown woman with kids of her own, will she say, my mom emotionally scarred me from capturing every time I cried from an early age?
She loves the book. I mean, we've brought it, we bring it to story time. It's when she has school, she shows it off. And this is one of the books we read at bedtime. Sometimes we go through the book and I've numbered it, and they're not like, they start off number 1, number 2, and they try to put them in sequence order. And then they go out of order, like 14, 17. She's like, well, wait, where's 18? I'm like, well, this isn't really a thing. I just made it up.
Right. That's so good. Hey, Brenda, I see some comments coming in about bucket filling. I don't know if this is like the same. We have a book called The Bucket Filler, and it's so simple, but it's so powerful. It's about like, in the same kind of metaphor of your energy units, everybody wakes up each day with a bucket. And when you give, you fill your bucket up. When you receive, it's about giving and receiving and creating, making sure that bucket's full, or you're either bucket filling or bucket dipping.
Yeah.
And it's another way to kind of reinforce like behavior that you don't want with your kids. But I think it's so true with our adults. And you do such a good job of bucket filling online, right? You've got your shout outs, you've got your LinkedIn stars that you post. Like, you're not just self-promoting. You are always promoting others and always giving, which I think is just so awesome. So I just want to say that you are not beyond being a LinkedIn rock star. You are a bucket filler rock star.
Oh, thank you. It's funny because when I find I'm more comfortable talking about other people than I am talking about myself. And I also find like when I'm in a funk, either from a business perspective or personal perspective, I shift to my focus to other people and shine the spotlight on other people. And, even in the times we're in right now, everybody's taking a hit. So I'm like, well, what can I do? Well, I'll do more of these LinkedIn live interviews, and I'll bring people like Mark in, who is, newer to the world of working for himself, and give him some visibility. And related to that, guys, I want to pop up, we're going to go through more comments here too, but I do want to pop up Mark's website up on screen here. If you haven't already checked it out, definitely visit his website. And let's see if I can pop your website up on screen here. And I think your website is amazing too, Mark. I was like, wow, I looked at your website. I'm like, oh, I want a website that looks like that. It's the
helps when you're married to a professional photographer.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's your brand. I mean, you created the vision for this site too, and I just think it's amazing. So check out the website, guys. Do you have like an email list or something people can subscribe to, or where do we get to that?
Yeah. If you scroll down a little bit, stop right there. Yeah. That's a really great digital download that you guys can have for free. It's 5 ways to improve your digital well-being at home and at work. It covers topics like Zoom fatigue to topics like creating space at the dinner table. A lot of fun, has some accountability in there, so you can download that for free. Or in the footer is also a way to sign up for my monthly email newsletter. I actually, what I'll do is I have these little tiny gratitude notebooks. Brenda, have I ever sent you one or given you one?
No, but I saw a picture. Is it in your LinkedIn header? I want to try.
Yeah, they're super cool. They're about the size of a phone.
Okay.
By design. And the idea is that you wake up and get into gratitude before you start your day. Speaking of start today. Each page, it's a 2-week challenge, has a quote, and then it has an area for you to write what you're grateful for and an area to release what you're worried about. Because I think that worry impacts thanks and praise, like worry impacts gratitude. So
yeah. And it can pull those negative units, if you will, out, right? I think sometimes you need to like say what you're stressed about or worried about or anxious about, because then it releases it from your mind.
It's so true. And Lisa, I see you say, if you want to lift yourself up, lift someone else up. Totally believe that. And Brenda, you were talking earlier about water, like through the buckets and just through like giving your kids a bath. Like water has been like one of my most preventative measures to my own mental health. So like I shower daily. My wife is like, you're showering again. And she's like, showering for her is like a production with the hair and the kids.
Oh, it is. It's like, it's a whole thing.
And I'm like, yes, I'm showering daily. But
you don't have the hair thing, Mark.
I don't. But my mentor, he's 90 years old. He always, any problem I come to him, he always turns it back to water. And he was a physician for the first 45 years of his life. Well, till he was 45. And then he stopped being a physician and went into full-time ministry. But he talks about like at the cellular level, what is between two cells is water.
Yeah.
So when you're dehydrated, your cells are sick, when you're not feeling well. So he talks about like hydration and sleep are the best ways to cure your physical health. And the same goes emotionally and spiritually. Like there's so much, again, about like the living water and how water heals and things of that nature. And I think that when you're giving to others, when you're promoting others, when you're lifting others up, you're literally, you are the hose, right? And the water is pouring out of you. And because the water pours out of you, you get the first drink because you're the hose. Just be the hose, be that vessel, that vehicle for the water to pour out of you. So when you're feeling depressed or anxious, like how are you getting out of your own way and helping others? And that's hard to do when you're at home.
Yeah, that's a great point. And on that note too, I want to remind people, though I'm putting a little ticker on here, please share this video. So if you're watching this now live on LinkedIn or on Facebook, you can click to share it with your network and start to get some of these messages out to other people. That is in essence, you're filling their buckets, you're paying it forward, if you will, by sharing the message with them. If you're watching this later on in playback, you can do the same. If you're watching this on YouTube, share the link with somebody as well. I think it's a great way of starting to get those messages out. Mark, I'm curious. So in comments, I know you can see comments. Can you share comments? You're my first guest I'm asking this question.
Can I make a comment?
Can you share a comment? Like when I hover over it, I can click on show and it shares the comments. Can you do that or no? Okay, so I'm kind of I guess as the StreamYard host, I think I'm the only person who can do that. So we've gotten a lot of great comments that are coming in here, Mark. If you're seeing anything that you want me to pull up on screen, let me know. I'm just going to scroll up and down in here.
Yeah.
Nikki, I want to come back because we started talking about this, and Nikki said she can't take credit for that term, new abnormal. Doesn't remember where she heard. So Nikki, you're just like me. I'm like, I don't want to use the term if I didn't create it. I'm like, who was it? It was their term. If you guys know anybody who's watching this where that term is coming from, drop a comment.
I'm like the opposite, by the way.
Yeah. How so?
Like, oh, that sounds cool. I'm going to turn that into my own.
Right. Well, you personalize it, know. So let's see. We're international. So we have Gergely, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Budapest joining us. So
hey Brenda, I want to give away some of these gratitude notebooks. So
awesome.
The first 5 people that email me something that they're grateful for at hello@markostach.com, I'll send you a gratitude notebook.
Awesome. I'm going to put that in the notes. So hello@markostach.com.
Yep.
And then mention what you were grateful for.
What you're grateful for, and what you're worried about today in this moment, and I will send you one of these gratitude notebooks as a thank you.
5 get. Let's see if I can type and not typo. Get a free gratitude. What are you calling that, notebook?
Yep. And they're the size of a phone. They fit in your purse or your pocket, and they are a great addition next to your nightstand. So that way, when your alarm goes off on your phone.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I can put comments up while we keep that up. So I want to keep that up for a few moments here so people can kind of read through it. But we've had such a lot of great conversation on here, guys. And a lot of people are agreeing they love Brene Brown. People are admitting they've become more of an open book. They like the perspectives we're sharing here. Jogendra mentions not much of opportunities due to pandemic, but starting my own business is something that person is looking at doing, that he's looking at doing right now. So yeah, we create our own opportunities, right, Mark? In the times that we're in right now, we make the best of the situation.
Yeah, it's easier said than done. It's like an author I love, John Acuff. He's just a brilliant writer, and he's very much leans into humor. He tweeted the other day about like a pandemic does not call for a productivity contest, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of people, like sometimes I feel like when people are really thriving, and again, I think Mary talked about like helping people thrive, and we all have these stories in our head in these situations. That's why I refer to it as environmental depression, because it's like your environment impacts how you think and feel.
Right.
And it's really hard to, like, both my wife and I are independent business owners, and we're dealing with 2 toddlers, and we don't have a clear cadence on our schedule, and it's maddening.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like, I finished this book, and it was like a huge feat, and I think I might have cried out of like sheer exhaustion on how inefficient I was doing it because of the current situation. But it's like, you got to give yourself grace wherever you're at, like whether you're, laid off, whether you're working from home for the first time ever, whether you're starting your own business or pivoting, like grace is that like super glue to give you a chance to kind of like just be okay with where you're at.
Right. No, definitely. And I agree. I mean, I don't think, I've read the little things too that say if you don't start something new or to learn a new skill or do all these other things when we come out of this, you've failed. And no, you haven't. If there's things you want to do, you'll get them done. I think we're all doing the best we can. And, if there's opportunity to do something and you have the desire and the ability to and the time to do so, you'll do it. And if not, I mean, we're all doing the best we can. I think we're all doing the best we can. And this is not a contest. This is not like, oh, who's going to win? I love the Hunter Energy Unit thing too. A lot of people are talking about how they are surviving and thriving. And I think they really like the stories that we've been sharing. Somebody else had the same print as we're doing the Wilson now. This is what
we are. Hello. Can you see?
The big comment. Faith with Heels, who is Mavita Burris. Now, Mark, you were a speaker at the Detroit Economic Club's Young Leader Conference.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, Mavita
as were you. Yeah. Metro Detroit's been kind of my backyard for giving me just a platform and a chance to kind of share what's on my heart. So very thankful for that. And starting to, at first, there's a lot of fear. I'm like, oh, my events were canceled and are canceling, and some of those were out of state. And it's like, well, there goes that vision, right? But
yes and no, because I mean, here's something I'm doing the speaking circuit too, and I actually just enrolled in a virtual speaking course. So now I am learning from, the people that I originally learned some speaking techniques from are teaching me how do I shift my business to virtual. And there's a huge opportunity in that space. I mean, yeah, the national stuff is done for a little while. It'll start back up eventually. But in the meantime, Mark, there's a huge opportunity for virtual keynotes. Huge. And you've got a back. I'm curious, where did you get that backdrop? Was that just off of Amazon, or where was that from?
I can send a follow-up link. It was. Yeah. And again, my wife's a photographer. It's intended to help with lighting when you're doing a photo shoot in natural light. Yeah,
but it looks very polished. And when you're up on screen, whether you're in a single view or even a larger pane view, you don't have. I've got some strategic clutter behind me, but you don't have that effect. And in Zoom meetings, we can put those Zoom things, but then sometimes we get that weird green screen effect. I like that because it's nice and clean in terms of the background. So Mark, I could continue to talk to you for hours. I'm noticing it's 10:54. I promised you we would wrap because we have, I know you've got an appointment coming up here. So any final comments for the group before we wrap here today?
Yeah, I'm just so thankful to have had a chance to join in your world headquarters this morning over coffee or tea. Brenda, you are a gift to so many. My prayer for you is that the lack of confidence or the imposter syndrome or whatever other junk that's on your heart, I pray that it just be flooded out and opened up so that you can see and feel and receive all of the awesome work that you're helping others do. Because you've been an inspiration to me and watching just kind of you just naturally and authentically grow your business and your network. And I think that's what people want. People want to know that there's a princess castle behind you. They want to know that you actually couldn't figure out how to file for unemployment, or you couldn't, or you're feeling depressed and you decided to post that. Those are the things that people want to connect with. That creates that, I'm not alone. I've got a shirt on that says "In Good Company," in Good Co. Can you see that?
I love it. Yep.
Yeah. This is a campaign in Detroit. Here, we got to do. Can you do a screenshot for me, Brenda? Here.
I can. Let me grab. Okay. Yep. There we go.
Okay. So, In Good Co. is a support community and campaign for entrepreneurs in Metro Detroit that focus on sharing stories about how they've been through the struggle as entrepreneurs and are now kind of in good company in this group together. So if you go to ingoodco.com, I believe it is, you can just be inspired by a lot of other good stories. And the point of that is that we need community, right?
Yeah.
We need connection, we need support, we need grace, we need all these things. And we need to get creative in this new kind of digital age that we're quarantined to. So my kind of final thoughts are, it's not necessarily thoughts as much as they are just appreciation for having me on today and for everybody kind of sharing in with their comments and their stories. So thank you.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. And I really appreciate your time, your insights. Don't you guys love Mark? He is awesome. Subscribe to his newsletter. Follow him online. Are you open to connecting with folks on LinkedIn as well, Mark?
Oh, yeah. Please. Yeah. I need to get better at that. I'm like, I got to share on LinkedIn today. I'm talking.
You do. I'll grab you the screen capture and things like that too. But, definitely connect with Mark. Mention the interview. Mention something that resonated with you, whether it was the Princess Castle or the screen or the effing orange or whatever. I love that story. But Mark, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you out in the real world once we resume, normal activities. But I know I'll see you online in the meantime.
You too, Brenda. Thanks so much. And thanks for everybody that joined us today.
All right, guys. And as we wrap, I just want to remind you, subscribe to mellermarketing.com/subscribe, and you'll get email notifications about once a week from me of other upcoming LinkedIn Live interviews, as well as LinkedIn strategy tips. And stay safe, stay healthy, stay real, right? And have a great day. We'll see you guys.
Take care.
Take care.